There has been several moments in my life where I have found the police very questionable. Some of this is based on just things I've heard and seen. Other things are my own personal experience with them, where they have failed myself or people that I know. But one thing in particular that has always stood out in my mind, that I still to this day don't understand, is this. So I was 18 years old. I was in college. I lived in a flat with my 8-month-old baby. I was studying health and social care. I'm about 3 months into the course and the tutor tells me and everyone else in the class that a police officer will be coming the next day to give us all a talk on women's safety. In my health and social care class, there were about 20 of us. 18 were females, 2 of them were men. So the police officer comes to the college the next day, sits down in our classroom with us health and social care people, and he's talking about women's safety. And obviously I'm paraphrasing a little bit because I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of, you girls won't have to worry too much about if someone breaks into your house because you probably live with your parents. I thought that was a bit silly straight away, because even if you're 18 and live with your parents, 1, doesn't mean they don't leave the house. And 2, if someone breaks in, you're all still potentially in danger. It doesn't matter if your parents are there. So he said that, and my friend, I'll call her Megan, shouted out, well, Slaney lives alone. So the police officer turns to me and he's like, oh, do you live alone? And I'm like, well, yeah, I have my baby, but yeah, it still kind of feels like I live alone. You know, I'm responsible for myself and her. So then the police officer asked me, so how do you keep yourself safe? How do you feel safe in your home at night when you're alone? And I was like, well, I keep the doors and the windows locked. I'm careful about who knows where I live. And then I said, the next thing I said it in a jokey way, but I was being serious. I said, I keep under my bed, a shank, basically. And I said it in a jokey way and it got a few laughs, but the police officer sort of stared at me and was like, wait, do you really? And on one hand, I'm like, well, I don't want to actually confirm to this police officer that I was serious because it's a police officer. But at the same time, I'm like, well, what's he going to do? He's not going to come to my house and search it, is he? So I was like, well, yeah, I do. And he was like, why? And I was like, because it makes me feel safe. Like, if someone breaks in, it makes me feel safe to have. He was like, but if someone breaks in, would you actually use the on them? Now, the way he said it was really confrontational. And the way I am, I like suck in emotions. If I'm around someone really happy, I absorb that and become so happy. If I'm around someone miserable, I absorb that and become miserable. So because he was a bit confrontational, it made me a bit as well. So I was like, well, if it's necessary to, if I felt like I had no other choice, then yeah, like I'm protecting myself. I've got to protect me and my child. Like, don't break into my house. So then he was like, well, if you do that, you go to prison for murder. And I was like, what? Why? And if someone breaks into my house and actually attacks me or grapes me, surely it's self-defense if I attack them back. Like, I'm protecting myself. And the police officer was like, yeah. But the fact that you keep under your bed means it's premeditated. It means that you've already thought to yourself, if someone breaks in, I'm going to do this. And I was like, well, yeah, as a woman, you have to think about that. As a woman, you have to, on a daily basis, every time you leave the house, you have to think about, well, yeah, if this happens, how do I protect myself? I'm just trying to keep me and my baby safe. I didn't actually even think someone would break into my house because the flat I lived in, it was like the 3rd floor. There were so many security gates. I never really thought someone would break in anyway. It was just purely for my own peace of mind that I had this under my bed. So I said, so it really wouldn't be self-defense. And he was like, no, it wouldn't be self-defense. So then I was like, well, what if I make it to the kitchen though? Where are kept, if I manage to make it to the kitchen and then grab a and do what I have to do, is that self-defense? And he was like, yeah, that's self-defense. And I was like, how's that self-defense if the other thing isn't self-defense? He was like, because it's not premeditated. If you make it to the kitchen, it's not premeditated. What chance do I have of making it to the kitchen? My bedroom was right by the front door. If someone is breaking into the house to attack me, they're coming into my bedroom. It's the closest to the door. I'm sort of sitting there confused by the whole conversation. Like, I understood where he was coming from, this whole premeditated thing. Like, I get his logic. I understand it. But at the same time, I don't know why I wasn't allowed to, like, protect myself in my own home. Now I've asked that out loud, I get that you don't want to do that too much in case people use it as an excuse. Like, if someone attacks someone else and then says, well, I didn't invite them into my home. Like, I get it. But at the same time, I was just really confused by pretty much if someone breaks into my house and attacks me, well, I'm just going to have to accept it. I'm just going to have to accept it's going to happen. And not protect myself. Not be able to protect my child either. Here's where it gets funny though. This police officer continues to talk about women's safety. He talks about if a woman is out alone at night. After more talking, he then says, let me give you some tips on how to remain safe when you're alone at night. The first tip he said was about the keys. Every woman will know what I'm talking about with the keys. When you are walking down alone at night, and if you're afraid of someone in front of you, you put your key in between your fingers. You get attacked, you can, well, I jumped right on that, didn't I? I put my hand up straight away and I said, isn't that premeditated? Because is it not? And listen, I'm not discouraging anyone against the key thing. I've done it many times. Being a woman on the street, you are a target. Doesn't matter who you are. This police officer has just said, yeah, walk down the street with your keys in your hand. And like I said, I'm not going against the key thing. I was trying to make the point that why can't I have a under my bed? You know what this police officer said? He said, well, yes, technically it's premeditated. He was like, but I can't imagine a man, if he tries to attack a woman and then she uses her key, I can't imagine he'll run to the police station to complain about you. To me, not knowing when to stop, not one to back down, I said, but if a man breaks into my house to grape me, ends up getting a little bit hurt, is he going to go to a police station to say, oh yeah, I broke into a woman's house and tried to grape her and then she attacked me? Like, by the same logic. Does that make sense? I don't know where I was even going with this. Like, I understand the for and against. Like, I understand why it's not always good to have under your bed. Especially if the man, this is the point as well. If a man gets hold of it, and yes, not a good situation to be in. At the same time, I kind of feel like I have the right to protect myself if someone breaks in. And some people really won't agree with that, and I get it. I'm not trying to upset anyone. I want a solution. If someone breaks into my house, somehow, like, kicks my door down, I've locked it, all of that, I've done every safety measure I can think of, but they still break down my door. How do I protect myself? Because I had it before with one of my exes. I've spoken about this before. My ex broke my door down. As he was trying to break my door down, I already had called the police. This guy was trying to break down my door for half an hour before he succeeded. The police station was 5 minutes up the road from me. I'm not exaggerating, it was 5 minutes away. And by the time the police got there, my door had already been broken down and I had been hurt. So the police, do you know what I mean? How do I protect myself? You can't. I feel like you can't. You can't win. If you protect yourself, you'll end up in trouble with the police. If you don't protect yourself, you'll end up in trouble with the person who's trying to attack you. Us women, we really can't win. Because I believe if someone wants to get you, they'll get you. They'll find a way. They won't let a door stop them. The police officer in the end just refused to even look at me. He was really annoyed because I wouldn't stop. But it was important for me to make my point.